Okay, so today's topic I'm going to present on is text and email language, or dissecting and looking at the way in which I use word choice, grammar, sentence structure, emojis, tone, and all that within my own text and email language. So let's begin. Let's start with tone. I think this is a huge one, and one that can be highly misunderstood within a text-for-text conversation. So you don't have that visual cues of body language, facial structure, all that kind of stuff when you get in an auditory conversation face-to-face with somebody. So right now you only have your reading to pick up on, and sometimes there is a lot of misunderstandings and misreadings that go into that because we have our own preconceived notions of what we think is happening in the conversation. So tone is definitely a very important thing to dissect and look at. Use of emojis and or GIFs, I would say, is a huge part in day-to-day conversations amongst me and my peers. It helps to clarify sense of humor. It adds emphasis to emotion, whatever emotion that may be, and to lessen misunderstandings. So when you have visual cues to pick up on, you are less inclined to look at it the other way. So if someone sends a bunch of heart emojis or a little GIF of two little kids hugging, you're not going to be like, wow, I think she's really upset at me. You're not, because with the use of the visual cues, it helps add that kind of emphasis on the tone in which they want you to perceive. You understand? So emojis and GIFs are a very useful tool in helping relieve and lessen misunderstandings amongst communication via texting and emailing and all of that. Use of haha capitalized, haha lowercase, and or LOL, which means laugh out loud. Commonly used to not sound so serious, kind of just a lighthearted, joking, teasing manner to make sure that no one's reading too far into the conversation. It's very, what's the right word? It's very, it's not serious is what I'm trying to say. So I've noticed within looking at my text and emails, not so much emails, due to the fact that most of my emails are used to speak to my boss or my professors or authority figures in some sense, coaches, parents of players that I coached. So very professional manner, I would say. For email, I don't use haha or LOL at all. But for texting amongst my peers, my mom, my dad, I would say I use haha a lot to make sure to really push into emphasis that I'm just joking, that this is a very superficial conversation almost, that they don't have to look too far into it. And I tend to see that I use haha and or LOL like in exchange all the time, almost in every other sentence, which seems annoying, but I think with this time and age, we kind of block out those words. So like we see them, but we don't actually say them out loud when we're reading a text, if that makes sense. So on the next page, I have examples of everything I have listed here, and I'll kind of go into depth on that a little bit more. On the next one, capitalization is used to emphasize a phrase and or statement, whether that be negative or positive, to say, oh no, in all caps. One was to think like, what's wrong? What's the matter? What needs to be done? Or you can say like, woohoo, in all caps, and that's to emphasize like, I'm excited, like that's awesome, woohoo, like our team scored or something like along those lines. It's to show enthusiasm, just like I stated previously, or to show irritation. So it could be used in all caps to show someone yelling directions at you, or it can be used as capitalizing everything to show that they are emphasizing that they mean what they say, whether that be negative and or positive. Curse words. When looking at my everyday text amongst my friends and family and whatnot, curse words are something that comes up very, 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 very often. And I think this is because curse words nowadays are very versatile. And I say that because, at least with my little brothers who are 19 and myself, and amongst who we talk to, the F word, the S word, get exchanged and used almost every other word. And it's not to say that we are illiterate or we are uneducated. We as a generation, I believe, use cuss words to emphasize, joy, happiness, frustration, anger, all of it. So we use them in exchange for almost all of the emotions that one can feel. You can add the F word to emphasize any other emotion. So you can say, for example, I am effing sad, or I'm effing happy, or I'm effing frustrated. So it's kind of just a word you can chunk in front of any other emotion to emphasize the severity of the next emotion, which I think is quite interesting. Many parents and or authority figures don't necessarily agree on this tactic or in the way in which we speak. But I would say it's more often seen in texting language rather than verbal conversation. Yes, more cuss words are being used verbally, but I would say our leniency for watching what we say via text is very, very loose. So cuss words are used quite often. So let's look at the examples. I just want to add a disclaimer. I did not bleep out cuss words due to the fact that it was a topic in which we were supposed to examine within this text. So these are text amongst my best friend and then my mom. So I have my best friend on the far left and the far right, and then my mom in the middle. We're going to look at the one on the far left first, and we see that it almost has all of the examples that I mentioned before. So we start out right away with all caps. No way, you have to come home. And she's not yelling that at me as in like, no, you have to come home. You have to come home right now. It's more like, no, you have to come home. Like, please, come on, come home. And then she sends these pictures, which are actually GIFs. So they're moving videos. The first one is two little kids running and hugging each other. And these are two best friends dancing together. So instead of, she substituted the GIFs or the videos in replacement of being like, I want to hug you, or like, I want to like, get together and be like weird again and be best friends. So these GIFs work in substitution as visual cues instead of typing out more words. And there again, we have the LOL and we have the ha ha ha. And then underneath we have emojis, basically just saying or kind of reacting to the GIFs above. In the middle, we have a text between my mother and I. She is in the gray. She is definitely one who loves to add emojis into every and all sentences, no matter what the topic is. So she is not necessarily one to replace words for emojis, but she'll add emojis on to the end of her sentences. On the far right, we have another text between my best friend and I. here is an example of a word choice, dope. It is not one that I would say I use often, but it is one that you can see often. Underneath, we have a few cuss words, and I am not using them in the sense of being mad at somebody or upset at somebody or in a vulgar sense. I'm just very, 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 very excited for my friend for submitting her real estate license application, and I put it in all caps because I am really just trying to emphasize the fact that I am very, very happy for her. And alongside all caps and the extension of letters, I put another GIF, which is just a girl basically being like, yes, to really, really send it home that I'm very excited for her. Grammar and sentence structure. Punctuation. Depending on who I'm speaking with, my punctuation will either be more strict or more lazy. And I say this because when I'm speaking amongst my peers, I tend to be more lackadaisy, for better choice of words, on how I structure my sentences, where I put commas, how many exclamation points, where I put capital letters, where I don't. Do I even use proper English? Do I just use, lazy English? And I'll explain that a little bit more in some next slides. But definitely commas, though. Commas are one thing that I would say I'm very strict at, and I'm very I don't have a lot of patience for. So if you don't put commas and you just have like a huge paragraph of a run-on sentence, I get kind of irritated, but that's just my personal preference. So I've realized that no matter to whom I'm speaking, whether it be a quick text to somebody I don't know or to a friend I've known forever or my mom or my grandma or whatever, commas I say are very, very, very important to me. And that is something that I will never sacrifice. The next one, the way in which I address somebody. So the difference between addressing somebody as Miss and Mrs. or Professor Haynes or something along those lines. And then the difference between addressing someone on a first name basis or just as like, hey, what's up? Or like something like that. So there's a very drastic difference. I would never email my professors with just their first name or, hey, how's it going? What's up? I got a couple questions. You don't mind? Like there's definitely, I was raised that there are different ethics and ways to approach, and there are underlying unspoken rules on how you write and you speak to people above you, and saying what's up and how's that and like how are you doing and stuff like that. It's not something in which you send in emails to professors or bosses or parental figures or anything like that. Addition of extra exclamation points and question marks, basically just to add emphasis. So the difference between like, hey, exclamation point, and hey, with a bunch of exclamation points, or the difference between what's up, 1 question mark, and what's up, 6 question marks. And it kind of just adds a little bit of eagerness to it. So it's kind of like if I send what's up with 6 question marks, it's kind of like, hey, come on, talk to me. Like, I want to know. Like, there's more of an eagerness to it. The addition of the ... can be taken in multiple different ways, but from what I've seen in my own personal texting and emailing is that I will never use that in emailing, but I do find that I use it in texting when I don't have anything else to add to the conversation and or sentence, or I am irritated and I kind of want you to pick up on that I'm irritated. I will throw in a ... at the end of my sentence. I'll be like, no, yeah, I'm fine, kind of leaving an open-ended structure for you to pick up on my tone, if that makes sense. One's ability to use different forms of English to each person I speak to shows the drastic flexibility of English. So while working on this project and seeing the different ways I use English in the different groups, so I have friends all around the same age, but they're all in different groups. And the way in which I speak to these groups, there's different tweaks in which I make. So there's groups that I am more lenient on cuss words with because I know that they are too. But then I go to my other friend group and I know that I probably shouldn't use that because they aren't too big on it and I don't want to make anyone uncomfortable. So I know how to adapt and how to kind of adjust to your audience, you know? And so that really shows how much you can do with English and still be able to communicate with it. So you can tweak it, alter it, kind of add to it, subtract from it, combine them together and kind of form new words here and there and still communicate and still understand one another. So I think that's really awesome, and it really does show the flexibility of the language itself. Different rules for each person you communicate with was what I just said. Is just there's kind of those unspoken how you speak to somebody in one group versus another and all that kind of stuff. One word responses. This can go in tone as well, but usually shows a lack of interest or something is off. So amongst my friends, if somebody, and it also, let me preference this by saying that it also depends on who you're talking to. Some people, that's just how they communicate. But amongst my friends, if someone gives me a one-word response, like 2 or 3 times in a row, something is definitely off. You have to read into that. You have to know that they're upset or they're irritated and kind of veer the conversation in that way, because one-word responses are almost like a slap in the face. Is that you really don't have the energy to say anything else to me? One word, that's all I get? Okay. That's kind of how it's perceived nowadays. Word choice. Here are just 2 examples of word choices that I found between living and growing up in California and moving to Penn Yan, New York on the East Coast. So growing up here and with my friends here in San Diego, California, sick is a word that we use all the time. Sick, yeah, sick. Oh, we're going there? Sick, that's awesome. It's kind of in replacement of like cool, awesome, that's great. Yeah, it's just another just like positive word. It's not meant to explain that someone is sick or ill or not feeling well. Like sick, I'm sick. No, it's like, no, I'm good, I'm awesome. Like we're good. When I first used this word in sentences amongst people in Cuba College and or my friends in Penn Yan, it was not taken well. They were kind of just like, what the heck? Why are you using that word? It's just like when I went to school in Northern California, a lot of people in the San Francisco area use the word hella, Hella, to basically emphasize like, yeah, that's hella cool. And just like I stated in the previous slide, how you can put the F word before any emotion and kind of emphasize the emotion itself. Same with hella. You can add hella basically anywhere in the sentence and somehow it makes sense. But the way I reacted to that word is kind of the same way New York reacted to me using sick in a sentence. Same with the example below, like now we chill, now we chillin'. And not ing, just in. We chillin'. We're not chilling, we're chillin'. there's a little bit of a vocal difference. And nah, and it's not just NAW, there has to be two W's or more if you're typing it out. If you're saying it, it doesn't really matter, but if you're typing it out, there's kind of like an unspoken rule. It's not to say that the temperature is cold or we are cold, but it's more to say that everything is good. I'm content. Now we chill. We're chilling. Everything okay? Yeah, we're chill. Like I said, it's not as common on the East Coast, but used in a daily conversation with my friends here in California, which is quite interesting because the way that my friends in New York reacted to that was just kind of like, what the heck? But then you kind of have this interesting moment where you kind of get me from the West Coast and you get my friends from the East Coast, and we live together, and all of a sudden you kind of pick up on people's mannerisms, or you pick up on the way people speak. So halfway into the semester, my roommates were saying like, now we chill. And I was like, look at you. Like, you start to, pick and choose what you start to use in your own daily speech because of the audience in which you are communicating with. So it's very interesting. So my last slide, the difference in family, friends, and professors. Basically stating that with tone, with word choice, with sentence structure, with grammar, I would say there's three different groups in which I closely analyzed, and that's family, friends, and professors. The way in which I speak to my friends is not anywhere close to how I speak to my professors and or my family. I would say that from leniency to more strict, it goes friends, then my family, and then my professors being the most strict. And strict, I say I follow sentence structure rules and grammar rules to a T, or at least I try to. I make sure that my English word choice is to the same level to which I'm speaking when I'm speaking to professors and those above me. Friends and family, I am a little bit more lenient with, but as in all, that was my presentation on text and email language. And yes, thank you so much for listening.